Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is Trey here from the Stone Disclosure. Sorry, it's been a while. I haven't, we've been doing a lot of things with the podcast, so we've really kind of been like making a push on it right now. We do have new content coming out. I am here with the amazing Trista Talks. If anybody doesn't know about Trista Talks, it's another podcast that's coming out. She's gonna actually be doing some really cool stuff. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Get on that and get your work done. But she actually called me today, and she brought up like an idea. She was talking about we're kind of talking about confidence and like self-esteem and stuff like that. So Trista, take it away. Kind of give us a rundown of what came to your head to contact me to talk about today.
Okay, so me and my friend, I should say, we're having a conversation, just talking about like her relationships with her boyfriend and just like friendships and everything. And to sum up the whole entire conversation, it was just talking about how a lot of people lack confidence, and nothing's wrong with that because we're all different. Some of us have certain things, some of us don't. But I realized how much of a toll it takes on like the way you see yourself, and then by then it takes a toll on the relationship itself. Because, for example, I know we all have encountered a friend or someone who's always like, oh my god, I'm so ugly, or oh my god, this doesn't look right, and always seeks validation from other people. And most of the time people don't notice it. Like, you could point out the smallest thing and people wouldn't notice unless you pointed it out in the first place. And then now people are going to look at you for that. So that's kind of like what we were talking about. And I was telling Trey about it, and that's kind of just how we came up with this idea.
So by definition to yourself, what would you consider confidence to be?
I feel like confidence can be and mean a lot of different things. Me personally, I feel like confidence is when you don't need to seek validation from other people, when you know what you want and what you like, and what you don't need to go out and do things for other people. It's for yourself. That's what confidence means to me.
So my confidence, and I don't know if this is in a dictionary or whatever, but my idea when I think of confidence is I think of like self-comfort. Like, you're comfortable with who you are as a person, and you're not going to really
change yourself
paid by anybody else's opinion. You just believe that like, this is what I'm capable of. You know your skills, you know what you're comfortable with, not comfortable with, and you just kind of make decisions in life based on that. That's just my interpretation of it.
Yeah.
So one thing that I like to, let me pull up my handy dandy notebook. One thing that I always like to kind of look at when it comes to stuff like this is why people lack confidence or why people have these insecurities. Now, my take on this is that I feel like insecurities come from a place of fear. And I feel like it's fear manifesting itself. Now, to best describe it is like if you grew up in a home where beauty was like a big thing, like you're a woman, and this happens with a lot of women, where your mother's constantly like, you have to be the prettiest girl. If you're not pretty, some guy's not gonna like you. That's gonna become a sheer fear for you that like you won't be attractive. So all your decisions are gonna be based on trying to present yourself in the most beautiful manner possible. And when you feel like you're not achieving that, that's when you're gonna start to feel insecure. Or when you feel like somebody doesn't notice you for your looks, that's where your insecurity is gonna come in. But it's coming from that place of fear of not being enough in that aspect. I don't know if this is like something that like you relate to, or you can like kind of see that point of view, or if you have a different opinion on it.
The confidence thing, like where it comes from.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like when people lack confidence, it's because there's, especially with social media, like I feel that's like a big thing that influences it, because you see all of these people with these like beauty standards that are raised and set and like trends, and you have to keep up with them or you're not considered beautiful, you're not considered, like in the mix or whatever is going on. So I feel like that's a big thing, because to you or to someone else, like being slim thick, you know, wearing makeup, doing this or not wearing makeup is a beauty standard. And then to someone else, it's like, oh, maybe I don't have perfect skin, or like there's something about my face that I want to hide with makeup. And it's like, oh, no, you can't wear makeup because that's not seen as beautiful. So I guess that's where confidence or the lack of confidence comes from. Well, one of the reasons, yeah.
So one thing that I look at, and it's funny that you like touched on that. It's actually really really well put. Is beauty standard, not
Yeah.
so much standard itself, but the word standard. This is what everybody collectively is agreeing upon. Now, one thing I will say, and I'm going to speak for the guys on this because there's a large majority of us that actually believe this. A lot of guys don't care if you wear makeup or not, because we know a lot of girls don't need makeup. You know what I mean? And it's like when girls wear makeup, they always say, "Oh, it's not to like impress the guy or anything like that. It's for yourself." So things like makeup, things like hair, things like nails. Do you think those are kind of covers for a lack of confidence, or do you feel like that's just there for enhancement purposes? And if it is for enhancement, why do you need to enhance what you already have?
See, the thing with cosmetics and like stuff like that is when girls say that they're doing it for themselves, it could be true. It could be very much true. Maybe they just want, maybe that's how they best feel. Because me personally, when I started doing makeup, I started doing it because I saw my sister doing it. And I was like, oh my God, that looks so pretty. Like, I want to be able to do that. So I got into it as an art. And then after a while, I was like, you know what? Like, I got so used to wearing it. I'm not gonna lie. There are some days, or there still are some days, where I don't want to go out without it. But I don't wear it because it makes me feel. I don't even know how to explain it. Like, I don't wear it because I need it. I wear it because it's like a way to express how I feel, and it's a way to kind of like show my personality in a way. Like, I don't feel myself without it, if that makes sense. And I know that sounds really bad, but that's really true, especially Lisa Keys. Like, when she first came out saying that she wasn't gonna wear makeup anymore and she was gonna go like full natural, everyone was like, oh my God, like why, blah blah blah. And it was because she realized that she was addicted to makeup. And then now she's getting back into it, and she started her own makeup brand because like she realized that she could set her own beauty standard, and it's not necessarily what that person thinks or what that person thinks is what she thinks. So yeah, I don't think so. I think there's different reasons as to why people wear makeup. Yeah.
So do we, that being said, now, like, if we're gonna just stick on that topic for a little bit and be honest, I want some honesty. If you were out and about on the street, or you were going to Walmart, or you're going to the dollar store, and it's like a 15-minute walk, would you do your makeup to go to the dollar store?
Yeah, because I have.
Why?
Because, well, me personally, I know I've told you this before, I have like people that I know that live in my area, and if I ran into them looking like a hobo, or I'm not saying if you don't wear makeup you look like a hobo, I'm just saying that like me, when you're so used to seeing someone a certain way and like you don't see them that way anymore, it's like, who are you? Like, you know, like for example, if you're used to, I don't know, eating breakfast every morning and then one day you don't eat breakfast, you're gonna feel weird.
I feel miserable.
Exactly. Like, it's just different if I did not do it, if that makes sense.
Do you feel like that gives you a bit of a confidence boost?
It does.
Full confidence around it, but just a little bump. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you saw somebody who normally wears makeup and you see them without it when you're out the road, like.
See, that's the thing though. If you're someone that never wore makeup, everyone's used to you not wearing makeup. So when that one day where it's like, oh no, you're going to like a school dance or some party or some wedding or something, you choose to wear makeup, it's like, you're a new person. Like, who are you? So it goes either way, like vice versa. Like if you see someone with makeup, and if you see someone out without makeup, you're gonna be shocked either way.
To me, it just kind of, it sounds like almost like a self-criticism type of thing. I don't know if you're the same way, because like it's true. Like, well, we are our biggest critics 95% of the time. Like before you told me I failed at something, I already felt like I did. You know what I mean? So nobody's gonna beat you up more than yourself. But it was the same with my voice. Like I hated my voice for years. And lately people are like, "Oh my god, like your voice is amazing." That being said, I did humble plug, Voice of Calm. Hopefully I get it. You guys can hear me on the app. That'd be amazing. If not, it is what it is. Um but do we think that self-criticism is like a healthy thing?
I would say it's a healthy thing as an unhealthy thing. Because we're always going to have that voice in our head no matter what it is. Unless it's like it could be a voice of, like motivation, or it could be a voice of like, like you belittling yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, that voice can also help you do better, because we don't realize, like if we just saw the world, or if we saw everything that we did as like a good thing and we did it perfect and whatever, there's no room for improvement.
Mm-hmm.
There's no room to better yourself. There's no room to realize what you could do better. You know what I mean? And if we don't have that, then we're just always going to think that, we ate. we did what we did. So, yeah.
I think one of the things that is important, and I learned that kind of just like through life, is like there has to be an assessment of wherever that like insecurity comes from. You got to kind of like figure out like where it's coming from in order to kind of get over it. So
Yeah.
if say somebody who is like obsessed with weight, like maybe they weren't overweight before and then they became overweight. Now they're starting to wonder like, oh, like how did I get here? Get in this panic mode to try to change all these different things to get back to that form. Or you could have been like that your entire life, and like it wasn't until somebody that like you respected called you out, and then
Yeah.
you type away. So you're trying to now compensate for that. But I think to properly assess that, we kind of have to figure out where that fear is derived from, where that anxiety around it comes from, and really tackle that. And if it is like, oh, well, this person that I liked didn't like me because they said I was fat, like you really got to kind of look at that and be like, okay, is that big of a deal enough for me to want to go and throw myself into all this anxiety for no reason? So, like, really tackling that fear and that assessment of the whole thing, I think, is key to kind of overcoming anything like that. Um, Feel free to add, because, you know.
Well, what you just said, I mean, like, in that case, that really just comes down to, are you comfortable with yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Or why do you feel the need to change yourself for someone?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if someone doesn't like you for the way that you were before, what makes you think they're going to like you when you change?
Mm-hmm. And then even if it's not for someone, like, why do you feel like you need to change it for yourself?
Yeah.
Also a big one, right? Like, if you're walking up the stairs and you get tired after the third flight and you're like, oh, I gotta
I'm
get
not
back.
gonna lie though, with COVID and wearing a face mask, stairs was not my friend. But yeah.
Stairs is never my friend. I'm in shape, and stairs is never my friend. What it is. Now, I think another thing that becomes a little unconscious, like a lot of people don't realize that they do it, is that they start to kind of like project their insecurities. What do you think about that?
They do, and that's one thing I realized when I was talking to my friend about the relationship stuff, because I remember like another friend of mine said this before, and she was like, "Oh, well, when it comes to dating people and when it comes to looks, tens have to date tens, and eights have to date eights, and fives have to date fives." But then I sat down and I looked at it, and I'm just like, why do looks matter so much? Like, I understand you have to have some type of physical attraction to someone, but for you to like need that physical attraction first to go and talk to someone, like I could have a conversation with a random person on the bus and they're not usually my type, but the conversation is so good and so pure that it's like, oh, who knows? Like maybe that person might be your future husband or wife or whatever. You never know. So after I sat down and I looked at it, I was just like, that's not okay. That's not a good way to see the world and other people. Because, like the saying where it's like, oh, don't judge a book by its cover.
Yeah.
It's true. Don't judge a book by its cover. So.
I agree and I disagree.
What do you mean?
in the fact that like there is more to relationships than just the physical appearance. I
Hmm.
will agree than 10%. But I disagree only in the fact of this. If the person genuinely, in a physical sense, would not be attractive to you, I
Hmm.
don't think the amount of personality will make them, it'll make them more attractive overall, but I don't think it's going to be attractive to the point where it's like, I want to date that person.
Yeah, and that's totally fine.
When you fall for somebody's personality, you just want them around, but not necessarily like in a dating sense, but
Yeah, I
like,
feel like
oh,
I
you be a friend.
friendship.
You
Yeah,
friend zone
and
conversation.
I totally get that. But how would you know any of that if you don't go with the person in the first place because you think that they're ugly?
110%. But okay, let's play devil's advocate. You're on the street and you see a guy who looks like a bucket. Are you gonna go talk to him?
I mean, I want to talk to anyone regardless, but like,
But if he's more attractive, well, let's so you're in grocery store.
hmm,
In the same aisle is the attractive shelf person. I don't know what they call them now. They used to call
like
them like
stalkers or whatever.
when I was in a grocery store, I was a grocery clerk. So you have the attractive one, and then you have the really ugly one. Which one are you talking to? You need to know where the milk is. Who are you talking to?
I guess, yeah, but like, that's not the point. Or like, haven't you ever watched Love Is Blind?
I
Did, did,
did.
I, did I make you watch it?
I watched it. I haven't finished it.
Yeah, so it's the same thing with that. Like, I know it's not the same because you're not seeing the person and you know what you
Mhm.
signed up for, but it's the same concepts. Like, why do we have to put each other on levels for who we could be? Like, why can't a 5 go hit up a 10?
But do take in that when you watch that show, one of the biggest fears that all of them had was that person that they fell for was ugly.
True.
In all
But like I
honesty,
said,
there's
but
not
that's
there was not a lot of ugly people in the first season. So that's the only season I watched was the first one. But there wasn't anybody who was marginally ugly. So imagine you're now in this pod and you strike up a relationship with Richard. And you and Richard get along great. And then you see Richard, and Richard is like a one. You ain't marrying Richard. Like, let's be honest. Because you got to look at Richard every day for the rest of your life.
okay, but that's not the
You
point.
have
The
to,
point
they
the
may
point
look like Richard.
the point is that like aside from that, like aside from walking up to someone on the street, because I wouldn't walk up to someone on the street regardless, because I'm too scared. But why can't why is it so like why can't a 5 go hit up a 10? Like I still want an answer to that question. Like why is it like that? Because haven't you seen so much people that like walking on the street or whatever or in public and they're like this like really pretty person or really hot guy and then like the girl is like or like the guy's like
Mm.
yeah, but why do we have to like rate ourselves and put like barriers between each other?
But why are we rating ourselves anyways? Why are we rating people anyways? Why is somebody a 10? And if a person is a 10 for you, that does not mean they'll be a
But
10.
that's another thing. Like I could see someone like a guy and I could be like, oh my god, he's a 10, and then to my friend he's like, I don't know, a 0.
Mm.
So that's another thing is what attracts people
Mhm.
or what people are attracted to.
Yeah, I think attraction too is also something that you give off. Now, I understand the physical aspect because that's the first thing, that's the first form of
You
communication
notice.
with that person. Before you even talk to them, that's like the representation.
Yeah.
If you were, and we did this training exercise for my work one time. This was like years ago, where you're at a bus stop and you want to ask information as to where to go next, and you see two people wearing the exact same uniform. One of them's uniform is like pressed, ironed, nothing out of place, everything is properly worn. The other guy has like half of his shirt hanging out of his pants, none of his clothes fit, his shoes are dirty. Who would you approach? 90% of the people said they'd approach the guy number one because he looked more together. And that's the thing with, I don't think it's necessarily something that's taught to us. I think that is actually just part of human nature. When you're mating, when animals are mating, and look at the peacock, for example. When the peacock's mating, the first peacock that's gonna find a mate is the one who is able to do the best mating dance, who has the best colors, who's bigger. These are all things that are natural in life. These are things that people naturally look to. Usually, if you're a woman, you want a guy who's like, who gives off that persona of protection. Not that you can't protect yourself, but why not have somebody who could protect you if they need it? Right? If you go and this is why guys go to the gym so much. This is why 90%, like 75% of people in the gym are going to be out of shape, extremely skinny, but they're trying to get bigger and trying to get stronger because they feel like they'll have a better chance of attracting women. And it's true. They really will at the end of the day. It's the same with women in makeup. Yes, you're putting on makeup for you personally because you like the art of it. But the general idea with women is I have to hide my flaws so that I will be more attractive. I don't want to go out there with my hair in a mess. I don't want to go out there because my pimples are showing. I don't want to go out there because my eyebrows aren't properly done. That's why there's a beauty industry in the first place. It's really just to capitalize on the physical insecurities that they created themselves. It's actually really intelligent when you look at it. And I think this is one of the reasons why people tend to lose confidence. Because just not to pick on women, but like I can definitely pick on a whole bunch for guys. But guys, it's a lot harder for us. It's like if you're a guy and you're ugly, you're ugly. It is what there's very little you can do. No, legit. Like you can get a beard, you can get a nice haircut, you can get in shape, but that's about it.
Probably not even the beard though.
Some can't even grow a beard. You know,
That's luck.
and you growing a beard is you really just hiding half of your face, depending on how dense it is. But women can do all of those things. They can't grow a beard, no, but they do their hair, they do their nails, they do their lashes, their eyebrows, their makeup. Like you've seen there are girls who are like a 3, and they do a little makeup, and then they're like a 7. So you know what I mean? And then you throw the water on them, and then they go back to a 3. So it's almost like fake confidence in a way. And it's funny because fake confidence isn't necessarily a bad thing. The whole like concept of like fake it till you make it. You know you're ugly, but when you do makeup, people don't realize how ugly you are. So you kind of gain a little bit of confidence in yourself in that aspect. It's like when you go and get a haircut or you get your hair done for the first time, or you go, not even the first time, you go get your hair done. You come out of the hair salon feeling what? Better about yourself. We don't know if your hair looks good or not. Your hair could look horrible, but you feel better knowing that you went and get your hair done to the way that you wanted to do your hair.
So after hearing you just say that, like I just, how for a while it was like females were kind of attacking guys because guys are raising these beauty standards for women, like with their physical appearance, like their bodies and all that stuff, especially during COVID. Is that why guys have such high standards when they don't even look that good? Because a lot of the time it was like guys want like a slim, thick girl. He wants her to be like, natural face, everything. But it's like that cannot be achieved with surgery or something done to alter the person's body or something. You know what I mean? So, do you think that's why guys raise their standards for women?
Yes and no. I don't feel like guys necessarily raise their standards. I think it more fell on women at that point. And hear me out on this. So you're at your job and your boss comes to you and says, "Hey, I expect you to do 7 reports a day." Now, you could actually go and do the 7 reports. You know that like doing 7 reports is very difficult to do, and you would legitimately be working the entire time, not taking your breaks or whatever. So you can choose to try to do 7 reports a day, or you can say, you know what, I'm gonna do 5 and I'm good with that. And I think that's what happened here. Guys were kind of just like, oh, well, I want a girl who has long hair. So all these girls went out and got weave. And now that playing field is level again. So then guys are like, okay, well, I want her to have nice eyelashes. And then we raised the bar, and then they fought to meet the bar. And it was just constantly this. And guys don't really compete for girls as much anymore, in all honesty. Guys have clued in that there are more women in the world than men. So we're not too keen on being like, oh, we're going to fight for this or fight for that. Yeah, if we get with her, great. But if not, there's somebody else. We know this. Women are more competitive when it comes to dating than men are. So I think it's because we were able to say we raised our standard, though we really didn't, and you just kept meeting us there, that's just going to continue. And that's really what this has been this entire time. We're going to have to get to the point where they're just kind of like, you know what? Forget all that. You know what I mean?
I feel like that's like my worst fear. Because there's so much people influenced by social media that they don't realize it, and it's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, I think it was last year. Did you see when people got BBLs?
Yeah.
And no one really like talked about any of the health risks or nothing. It was kind of just like, go get it, go get it. Mm-hmm. And a few years from now, I'm pretty sure BBLs are not even gonna be a thing. 100%. Like, it's gonna be a thing. It's just not gonna be as popular as it is right now. And I'm just like, it's kind of crazy, especially the lip filters or like just like little surgeries like that, or not even little surgeries because those are big surgeries, but things like that. And it's just crazy how like social media could say, oh yeah, this is like what's in trend right now, and then everyone does it, and then it's like a few years later it's not even big anymore.
Yeah, they've created this cycle of insecurity and low self-esteem, and they just prey on it. I'm telling you now, most of those guys who are like, oh, I have high standards and I expect this type of woman and blah blah blah, they're not getting girls like that. They're not. Yep. They're making that seem like that's the standard, so that if you come in, you will do everything you can to try to be that person. But in all honesty, they never get a person like that.
But
you can't be a 4 with no job. You don't really dress well. You don't really have any skills. You can't really like add to somebody's life and expect to get a high quality person. It's not going to happen. But if I give the illusion that that's the case, somebody who's not necessarily like that will do everything they can to be like that. And that's what they've been doing. It's the fake it till you make it mentality. That's really what it's all been about right now. It's like with any brand. Nike shoes are great. So are Reeboks. So are, they're more or less all made the same way from the same material. But why would you buy the Nike over the Reebok? Because somebody told everybody that the Nikes were better. And everyone wanted them.
Yeah.
It's really all just social marketing. It's crazy. Because you never think of that in this sense, but it really is. It's social marketing. Now, fake it till you make it is great. I personally swear by it 90% of the time. That's how you wind up manifesting things. If you believe it so much that you feel like it's gonna happen. It's bound to happen. And that's what these people are doing. It's crazy only because we're creating a weakness in people and then exploiting that weakness in people at the exact same time.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the crazy part is just how much influence we have on each other without realizing there's any influence at all. Because there, even like that big debate with like Apple and Samsung, sorry, I'm just like changing my seating position. Even with like Apple and Samsung, like there's that big debate that Apple is better. But then it's like, these are the same people that haven't had both phones. But like you're inserting yourself into a debate that you have no business doing, you know what I mean?
For sure.
Me personally, Apple is better. Talking from someone that had both of them, Apple is definitely better. But yeah, it's really interesting to see how much of an influence we have on each other, especially like businesses and companies and brands, influencers. Yeah.
I like that you brought up the Apple versus Samsung debate.
Why?
Because like, and specifically Samsung is what killed me, because there's a huge divide over all of this. And it wasn't until I had to replace a screen for an iPhone that I had. And I went into the Apple store and they said, yeah, no problem. We'll get it replaced. And then I actually found out that the screen was
It's
made by
Samsung.
so like business. This is why I like to kind of put everything in a business mindset. Successful businesses don't care. You know what I mean? They don't care if you fight about it. Because at the end of the day, you're fighting over the Samsung or the Apple is better, and Samsung's giving parts to Apple and Apple's giving parts to Samsung. So I think a lot of the time when people become obsessed with stuff like this to the point where it really affects their self-esteem, it's because they're not doing the right things with their life. And I don't mean in a sense of like they're just not taking care of themselves. I'm not saying that. I'm saying more in the fact of they need to find whatever their purpose in life is. They need to do things that are going to boost their self-esteem. Those skills that you have, those hobbies that you are into, those are the things you need to really focus yourself on. You can stand here and focus about like, oh, am I going to find a boyfriend and blah, 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 blah,
But
blah,
that's
blah.
not the thing, though. It's finding
Mm-hmm.
your hobbies and your purpose. Like
Yeah.
sitting around being closed-minded, you're not going to find any of that stuff.
Yeah.
You have to get out there. You have to try new things. You have to be open to trying new things and taking risks.
Yeah. I firmly believe that people need to do things they've never done before and go places they've never seen before. And I see this with a lot of people in like my community growing up. They don't really talked about this earlier. They don't really look to expand their life. So
It's
they
like
that they like to do, but they're so limited that you've done it enough that it's no longer entertaining for you anymore.
but it's comfortable for you. It's like a safety blanket because you know what you're gonna expect.
Exactly. Like I can speak for a lot of like West Indian people. When they go on vacation, they go back to the country they came from. You know what I mean? They don't go to Greece. They don't go to India. They don't go to China. They don't go to like South. They go back to whatever country they came from, and they go there for a week, and then they come back in. That's like the thing. There's nothing wrong with that, but you're really just stimulating your mind with the exact same things you stimulate your mind with. And with any stimulant, the more you use that stimulant, the less effective it becomes for you. It's like medication. If you constantly take Tylenol is not going to work for you anymore. And then you get in, that's how alcoholics are born, because you're used to getting that buzz, and like all addicts go through the same thing. Like the first, like, amazing for you. It's like, oh my God, this is great. But then the more you do it, you're not going to get the same result, and you're going to constantly keep chasing that. And this is why people become miserable. And this is why standards like this become so cumbersome in life, because that's all you focus on. If all you're focused on is being the most attractive version of yourself, looking appealing to other people, as you age, you're really going to start to feel it, because it's going to be harder and harder and harder for you to do so. Whereas, like, somebody who's kind of fulfilled their life a little bit, they'll be like, yeah, I'm not as pretty as I used to be, but I have more money. I've gone to like 5 new countries. I've done this. I've, raised really good grandchildren. I finished my gardening. Like, they have other things to get that sense of happiness from. And this is the problem. Like, we're not fulfilled as human beings. And because we're not fulfilled as human beings, the things that we have are the only things we know. And when those don't work for us, that's where depression hits.
So, in other words, kind of like what I got from what you just said is do things for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, especially now, especially with like a lot of like parents, they try to live through their children,
Mm-hmm.
and they try to like push whatever they want or they wanted for their lives onto their kids.
Mm-hmm.
So you're really, like some of what you're just saying is saying to live for yourself and
Mm-hmm.
to find yourself and to find what you're interested in. A really big thing for me is I think this was in like grade like 3. Yeah, grade 3. It was like some like track meet, and my friend asked me to go, and I just went with her because it was in the morning, and I was like, okay, fine. Like my school was like right beside our house. It was just like a quick walk, so I was like, yeah, I'll come. So I ended up going, and there's this one coach for the track team, and she saw me and she was like, "Oh my God, you're really tall for your age. You should try out for basketball." And that was the first time I've ever played basketball my whole entire life. And look, I love it. Like, I played every year. I got into more sports because of it. Like, I wouldn't have known that I loved basketball if I didn't go. You know what I mean? Like, you need to take that risk. You need to take those opportunities when they come to you, even if they seem, odd or you're hesitant to do it. Just go for it and just try it.
Yeah. I will say I've been very fortunate with my unfortunate life. Is the way I could put it. We moved around a lot, and not so much when you were younger, like more before you. Like we moved so I got to live in different neighborhoods around different like demographics. I grew up in neighborhoods where predominantly black, predominantly white, predominantly Filipino, predominantly Chinese. So you start to meet friends who have different cultures than you, different beliefs than you, and you become very well-rounded in a way. I have friends who I can go to the hood and meet, and they've never been snowboarding. They've never left the province. Their idea of like the farthest they've gone on any type of vacation is Niagara Falls, which is like a 4-hour drive away. And I have friends who have like left the country and gone to Egypt and backpacked through Europe and stuff like that. So it's like you really have to look at the difference in people. And travel is a big thing for people because you get to, as I said, change your stimulation. You put yourself in a different environment, a different culture, and your brain has to adapt. Sometimes it's a positive experience, sometimes it's negative, but it's different than seeing the same place every day, same thing every day. That's why people in jail, prison actually has one of the highest suicide rates
Say
because
that again.
prison, when you go to prison, like prisoners, have one of the highest suicide rates because you legitimately do the same thing all the time. And men get done a lot too. Men have a higher suicide rate than women because men have created this standard for themselves where it's like, I have to be structured and rudimentary for the survival of my family. So they don't
But
really take a lot of stock in themselves to open up and broaden their horizons as much and talk about the issues and really like come out of themselves. They almost become robotic. They do the same thing, they eat the same meals, they go to the same job, and they stay at the same job for like 20, 30 years, and you're miserable because you don't get that stimulation outside of that. And a lot of them, too, they're breadwinner, so they're not around their kids as much, they're not around their friends as much, and kids are like huge. Like, having a child myself and just being around children my whole life, children constantly give you that stimulation because they're constantly growing and evolving into different people. And if you pay attention, like you'll learn a lot from them. But not being around that is difficult, especially if you know it's there. So that's why I kind of like you almost become too structured to the point where you're happy because you kind of lose sense of self.
okay, and coming from like a person that isn't a male, me,
You're
why
not?
do why do guys feel the need to have that, I don't want to say persona, but like that stereotype portrayed onto men? Like why does it need to be like that? Like we're in the 21st century. It's not like we're in like the 90s where, women didn't have as much rights as they do now. Why is that still a thing? Like why, you know what I mean?
That that's a society standard that has to change. Me myself, it took me a long time to realize it that it's okay to like go through. It's okay to talk. It's okay to get it off your chest. It's okay to feel some type of emotion because that's natural. That's part of who you are. That's why you have the emotion for. We have been taught we're not allowed to exercise that. Not so much by women. It's just society in general. If you're a guy who was emotional, you were weak. If you were a person who got angry very quickly, you were impulsive. If you had no feelings at all, you could put your head down and get your work done. And in all honesty, we were taught that our feelings don't matter. It's not important. Like how many?
But now women, especially like I've seen on TikTok, and I know I can't really like mention TikTok all the time because like different opinions for different people. But there's one girl and she was talking about like why can't guys express their feelings to women? Like if women give you an environment, like a comfortable environment for you to do so, why do you turn it down?
Because it's fear. There's been tons of men who have done that, and women use it against them. And they tell their stories to like the next generation. So the next generation now has that fear that like I can't be vulnerable with you because women by extension don't necessarily like vulnerable men. That's starting to change now because they're understanding life better. But back then, if you were a guy who came home and cried to your wife, she'd be like, "What the fuck are you crying for?" Like, I have stuff going on too. You know what I mean? Go out there and do what you got to do. You soldier on and you do it. And I find a lot of couples back then didn't talk to each other. They didn't communicate with each other. The same problems that the man was going through where he felt like he wasn't being heard and he wasn't being supported and stuff. The woman was going through the exact same things, except she was telling that to her mom and her friends and not so much her husband. But her husband go and maybe talk to his dad about it. So we never really made the connection that we honestly are going through the exact same emotions, just differently. And women always created that safe space for each other, but men never did because they never viewed it as you would be a man if you did. Like if you couldn't handle your problems, you weren't a man. It was what it was. It's
I
sad.
get that.
It's a narrative that needs to change.
I mean, as times are changing, it's your opportunity to change with them. If you don't, then
And as I said,
that's on you.
the next generation has to be kind of like moved and kind of have to think outside of the box and look at the people that they're getting their advice from. Now it's all well and good that you can come to me and say, "Oh, marriages are horrible. Never get married. Da 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 da. Women are evil." But like, what what have you been doing in your life? Like,
Yeah.
are you the person I want to be? Right? If you look at the guy who's like super successful and he's like, "Yeah, I make a lot of money. Like, I take care of my family. My family never has to want for anything." But your kids don't know your middle name. Like, that's a problem. We have to vet where we get our sources from and really analyze whether that's what we want to be and what things they go through. I think us as a generation need to kind of consult with the people prior to us and really dive into why they did what they did so we can get a better understanding of like what we have to do for ourselves. Like I'll take my mom moves a certain way, but you really have to understand like why she moves like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I just feel like there's nothing wrong with taking advice from people with like different situations. It's kind of just like you figuring out how to use it in your situation because something that happened to I don't know Diego is not the same that happened to Frank. Like you have to kind of take what you can from it and then kind of fit it into your personal experience and maybe like Joe's experience and kind of just work with it.
I,
Yeah.
I just don't think we know how to. I don't think anyone's really figured it out, and the people that have figured out, we look at as crazy
Mm-hmm.
because they're so different from like normal society.
Again, it's the fear.
Hmm.
Fear is in all of us, and we all have something to be afraid of because of what we've been told or from what we have seen. But it's like there's gonna be times in our lives where things don't go as it should, or we don't see something, and then like we finally do see something, and then it's like So yeah, I mean it's not a bad thing.
I feel, and I'm just basing this on science. Human beings are
You eat? Just
human.
already with ponytail.
We're doing a meeting
Oh,
in Trevi.
a meeting, and they had to dress up to do meeting with Trevi. Uh,
It's recording.
what?
It's recording.
And
What do you mean?
What's wrong if it's recording?
Meaning he can hear you.
I know you can hear me. So
The world can hear you.
what? What's wrong with that?
No, never mind. I did not eat yet though.
You didn't eat yet?
No, it's only 4:30.
Well, it's a full mood.
I know,
Well,
right?
instead of you doing stupidness, go eat your food.
I'm not ready to eat yet.
You be there ready?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Why you open the window?
Because I need the light. Would you prefer me to turn on the light in the house then? You have some editing to do.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
But yeah, I forgot
Also,
something.
it looks like I have to. I don't even know what I was saying. Yeah, human beings are pack animals. Like we're designed to have families and we're designed to be in groups. That's the derivative because we come from monkeys, which are also like pack animals. And that fear of not belonging is just so massive that I think that's where all of this kind of derives from. Like you want that sense of being part of that community and fitting into that community. And when that community constantly tells you, oh, this is what we need, or this is what you need to do to be part of it, and start making it exclusive based on condition, we now condition ourselves to meet that standard. And not everybody can.
But we shouldn't. Like, from my personal experience, that did not work out well. Like, it didn't. Like, changing yourself just to fit someone, like what someone else feels like you should, does not benefit you in any way. Eventually, it starts to drain you because now you're like agreeing with what they believe in, and you're like kind of siding with them, and it's like things that you personally would not do. And you don't realize that until someone else that knows you tells you, and they're like, that's not you, like you're not used to that. And then now you're like kind of being seen as fake because, you know, one minute you're like this really nice person that cares, and then the next minute you're like rude and ignorant, and you're kind of like, I don't have this, you have like this like I don't care type of, you know.
Yeah. No, I feel what you mean. And that comes with finding yourself.
Yeah.
Know who you are as a person. And that, in all honesty, takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. Because in order to find yourself, you have to be honest with yourself. And most people aren't. And like best example is like somebody goes through a breakup. Most people look at like, oh, this is what they did to me, and like they said this and did, but no one ever looks at. Very few people. I'm gonna say no one, but very few people look at. Okay, where could I have been better? You know, where was I not supportive? Where could I have put in more effort? Maybe we wouldn't be in this situation.
Or what could I have done differently?
Exactly. And what do I learn from this? And this is why everybody that's gone through a breakup, I always say, like, legitimately take time and figure out who you are as a person. Like you have to get through that. But you have to come to a point where you don't need forgiveness from that person and you don't need closure from that person. You just need to come to the point where you're like, I'm done with this. I'm happy with who I am right now. I'm working on certain things to improve myself overall so I can present a more honest version, not a better version, but a more honest version to the next person that I decide to bring into my life.
Okay, I have two questions. So, when you've been in a relationship for like a long time, do you personally feel like, I'm not saying like speak for everyone, but do you personally feel like you lose a part of yourself because you're with this person and like you're with their influences for like a long time, and it's just like since you're spending time with them, it's kind of portraying onto you, and you kind of like slowly transition to a new person?
I wouldn't say you lose aspects of yourself. I say you modify yourself because you have to work in tandem with that other person. And by extension, you have to accept their hard values just like you have your hard values. You go into a relationship, there's certain things that you know you need in your life. Like you need the person to be honest. You need the person to like have certain qualities that are appealing to you. And just like how you have certain qualities of yourself that you want to keep. So it's not so much you lose part of yourself, but you start to figure out, okay, what's important to me and what's not important to me? What am I willing to sacrifice to gain? Because you want to keep that person. Everything in your life is going to have some sort of cost. And it's really a question of like, how much of that cost are you willing to pay for whatever it is? So if you have a good person in your life and you are I don't even know. I don't know the best way to say this. If you have a good person in your life and you're messy and they're not a messy person, is it worth it changing that habit of you being a messy person to keep that other person in your life? Are you losing anything or are you improving who you are as an overall individual? Because you're supposed to be learning from your partner. So I
Yeah.
think mindset of like, oh, if somebody's like, oh, I'm gonna lose this aspect of me, I'm gonna like, you're not really losing anything if it's beneficial, if it's a positive that's coming.
Okay, so that like brings me to the next question that I have then. Um, do you feel like it's easier for people to like date when they're younger, or do you feel like it's easier like as you're older?
I think it's easier to date when you're younger, but I think it's easier to have a meaningful relationship when you're older. Because the concept of dating is to lead, like, the concept of a relationship is to eventually get married, have not so much get married because marriage is like a construct, but like to have children and have a thriving family. Like that's the
Like to
overall,
build a life together.
right? That's what it's for. When you're young, you come in with an idea of innocence in a way. So it's easy to date because you don't know anything. You know what I mean? It's like everything is just hunky dory and great. But it's like when stuff starts to go wrong, like that's when these relationships tend to fail. There's very few relationships that last with both parties being happy between the ages of 20 and I think 28. You know, you've got to go through it. You've got to have your heart broken. You have to go through all those negative things to know exactly what you need specifically.
Mm-hmm.
There's no, and as messed up as it's going to sound, it is the truth, and people need to come to that realization. There is no such thing as a traditional relationship. There is no template for it. There is no cookie cutter way of doing it. All relationships are different. Just like raising a kid, all kids are different. So your needs for your kids will be different. Some people, like your kid, is non-verbal for years, but they're good at everything else. Some kids, your kid talks a lot, but they can't really walk that well. So it's like you can't really cater it to one dimension, but you can see the similarities in values in it. Like most relationships, you're going to need trust. Most relationships, you're going to need honesty. Most relationships, you're going to need communication. These are staples for what you need in a relationship. But some relationships function well when the people are distances apart from each other. Some relationships function well when you're constantly up under the other person. It really just is a matter of what your beneficial needs are both ways. I don't know if I answered your question, but
No, you did.
sure.
Yeah. No, I was just like thinking, and I was just like, you just ask you real quick your take on it, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think you really have meaningful relationship until you're older because then you both understand what you need better because you both know yourself better.
And you guys kind of like both went through the whole entire dating scene when you were younger, so it's like, I know what I want now.
Yeah. And you can't, I don't know. I don't like to look at relationships on a time base. I've seen people married for like 50 years and they're miserable. They were miserable for like 45 of those years. But they did it for the kids, they did it for the house, they did it because like they didn't want to start over. And I think there's a freeingness about being able to start over, being able to say this isn't for me, and going out and actually finding yourself and by extension knowing what you want. My advice is for somebody your age is like, don't rush to jump into a relationship. But when you're in a relationship, try to make it meaningful, even at a young age. Because at least that way you learn better. You get more experience out of it by going in and saying, well, I'm going to try to navigate this in a positive way and not really like listen to everybody else and their negativity. Like, I'm going to focus on myself and my partner and what we both need. And if it doesn't work, then you have a better understanding of what you need as a person. You don't really have to go through that healing phase as much.
It's not even that, but like knowing why you're going into one.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are your intentions for it? Like, where do you want it to go?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like that's like another factor.
It's one of the things that I think people need to be intentional about, and they're not. Like, when you go to work, you're intentional about your job for the most part. You do your job enough so you don't get fired, right? Some people, they want to get better at their job. If you have a hobby and your hobby is like working out, you're more intentional with your workouts when you go in. So why aren't we doing that with our relationships?
Mm-hmm.
Into these relationships with this mentality of like, that other person will conform to me, instead of how can I conform to them as well? And how can we both kind of learn from each other? It's wasting your time.
Not even that, but like, that's also where like communication comes in too. Because to me, I could be doing the bare minimum, but to the other person, it could be like, oh, like you're doing like amazing, like you're going above and beyond. So yeah, that's another thing too.
That fear, all of this derives from fear. Fear of making bad decisions, fear of doing the wrong thing, fear of you being the person that causes the relationship to fall apart. Most people will stay in a relationship until the other person leaves them. They will do everything in their power to annoy that person and give them every opportunity to walk away, because they're afraid to end it for themselves out of fear of how they're going to be judged by people. So it all kind of dates back to that fear and that self-esteem issue and that lack of confidence. And it's really just a missed sense of identity in a way. It's kind of cool how we went from that to start talking about.
I know, right? Like we were talking about like confidence, and now we're talking about relationships.
But it shows how it all ties in. Even in relationships, some people don't think that they're good partners. You know what I mean? There are people in relationships where like, I'm with you, but you're like, oh, I'm not attractive. I'm like, well, if you weren't attractive, I wouldn't be with you. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I gained a little weight. Well, yeah, okay, so still here. You know what I mean?
That's another thing. That's when I was talking about like with a friend that's always like, oh, I'm not attractive, and then it's like you're seeking validation, but it's like you don't need to.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure your friend wouldn't notice if you gained a little weight, you know. Even if you did, like, why do you need to point it out, you know?
But the thing is, too, if that's the case, let's say that's the case, and let's say it bothers him, it's up to that partner to be enough to go say, hey, listen, like, you're putting on a little weight. I'm starting to get concerned. How about we go to the gym? How about you come with me? Let's go for walks. How about we do this? How about we do that? But then it's on that partner to be honest with themselves as well and accept that that person is coming to you out of a place of love to let you know that there's a problem. Most of the times when you hear why people broke up and you hear like the problem behind that, this has been an ongoing thing throughout the relationship. It didn't just happen yesterday. It's just something that was never dealt with, never talked about, and by
that build up.
Yeah, so it builds until it explodes.
Yo, I swear these birds are on some substances.
So I thought you had a bird in your room earlier, just the way it was going off.
No, look, there's a bunch of them, but I just keep on like smashing into my window. But anyways, yeah, no, I feel like another thing is, again, we were talking about portraying your insecurities onto other people. That's another like big thing that can affect a relationship as well.
Yeah. What you project is what you allow. And I had this talk with a coworker of mine. I don't know. He just has this. He's a really intelligent person, extremely intelligent. I think they're one of the smartest people I know in that entire place. Very well spoken for themselves. Socially, they're a little awkward, and I'll give them that. That's about it. But they have this way of like complimenting themselves and then insulting themselves the next minute. Like he'll say something like, "Oh, well, yesterday I did this," and it's like a positive. Or yesterday I went to this and I did this and it was great. And I'm like, "Oh, that's awesome." And then the next breath they'll be like, "Oh, well, if you have to work with me today, I feel sorry for you." I'm like, "Why? Why boost yourself and then shoot yourself down after? Like it doesn't make any sense." And I started to realize it's like you find more solace in feeling that people will like you for you exposing your negative sides than praising your positive sides. We know what your weaknesses are. We see them every day. Your weakness is always the first thing somebody's going to know about you because it's the thing they're going to constantly look for. And I say it in the fact of like, if you're looking at me being around you in your mind as a negative thing to me, then that's how I'm going to look at you. Why would I give you praise if you can't even praise yourself? Because if you're trying to tell me like, "Oh, I want you to buy this car," and then in the next breath you're talking trash about the car, I'm not going to buy the car.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to think something's wrong. And then you start to look disingenuous to me. You, to me, look like now you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know anything. You're just speaking for the sake of speaking. And I got mad at him. I'm like, "Listen, I don't want to hear you downplay yourself again. Because if you're going to downplay yourself, I might as well just not communicate with you."
Yeah. Or like there's certain things that I can't say around you.
Mm-hmm. Like, I get it. I do it sometimes as a joke. Because, like, you know me. If something funny comes to my head, I'm going to say it. But, like, people will know I'm joking when I say it. Because I'm not doing it every other sentence. Like, there's times where I'll walk in and I'll just constantly boost myself. There's times where I'll walk in and I'll just be miserable. But I'm not going to do this tit for tat. It's going to be one or the other. But how you present yourself is how you want people to treat you. If you constantly consider yourself ugly, they're going to start thinking you're ugly.
If I could say make it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You can sit there and try to manifest it all you want. Like, I've noticed that there's a lot of girls out there who aren't per se attractive or the most attractive people, but I'm more attracted to them.
Because you have the confidence.
For me, because confidence takes work, and work takes effort. And I'll throw this out to like the guys who are listening, and I'm sure a lot of them will agree with me. If you go to a gym, what's more impressive to you, a girl who can do squats or a girl who can do pull-ups? Feel free to answer, Trista. If you
No.
asking you too.
I guess the girl that could do pull-ups.
Exactly, because girls don't have upper body strength. So if she can do pull-ups, she worked really hard to be able to do pull-ups. And that's really all it is. She went in there, and if you're learning to do pull-ups, you're going to start off and be able to do 3. And then next week you'll do 4. And then next week you'll do 5. So you failed in your mind a bunch of times before you got to this point. And it shows resiliency. It shows that she views herself as important. And she has goals for herself and she will achieve her goals. Whereas like the people who down themselves all the time, it's like, why would I talk to you for? If I'm about improving my life, I'm not going to learn anything from you. At least that's how I feel now. So let's not dare people. If you have the friend that constantly like downs themselves, don't indulge in their nonsense. Just boost them. Boost them and call it a day. I think those people just rather attention more than anything else. There are some people like that. They rather attention than respect. It just is what it is.
I was talking to my friend about compliments, actually. And kind of just like when you get compliments all the time, they don't really mean anything anymore. Like, for example, posting a photo or a video on Instagram or Snapchat or Facebook, whatever social media you use, and then getting the compliments, oh, you're so pretty, oh my god, your hair looks nice, oh my god, your eyebrows look good. I've gotten used to those compliments so much that when someone says them, it doesn't really have like that deep meaning that it used to have anymore. And I was trying to explain this to the person, and I'm just like, it's not going to be the same. Like, it's different because with me, when I post a video or a photo on Instagram or Snapchat, it's what I look like whenever I go out or whenever I'm doing something. It's not something big. Unless it was like a wedding that I was attending and I'm like going all out, I would understand, you complimenting and be like, oh my god, like, thank you. Like, I tried my best that day. But it's different. And when you get something so much, like when you're used to something, it doesn't really bother you anymore. Kind of like a person, like if you're used to having someone with you all the time and always hang out with you, you get used to it. So like them being there, I'm not saying it doesn't mean anything, it just, you're used to it, like it's expected, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it doesn't bother you as much as it doesn't affect your mood as much as it did before. If that makes sense.
No, it makes sense. It's like what I was saying with the stimulus, right? If something constantly is stimulating you the same way, it's like the person drinking alcohol, right? That alcohol, the next time, the third time, the fourth time, the fifth time, it's going to lose its effect and you're going to try to do more, right? One thing that I did see was like, I can't remember who it was, but there was this person that posted, I think they posted something on Instagram and they expected like huge results, like thousands of likes on this one photo. And they got like 100 and something. Now they're used to getting like 10,000, whatever, but like they got like 100. It's only been like 2 hours. And they lost their mind and like actually killed themselves. And I was like, that is a whole nother level of addiction that like no one talks about. Like being addicted to attention is more dangerous than alcohol, more dangerous than like heroin, more dangerous than like most of these drugs out there. You don't hear.
Because attention isn't necessarily controlled or as available as a substance is. Like for attention, you need to get that from someone else.
Yeah.
Right? And it's not just the fact that you could get it from someone else, it's certain people that you want it from. And that's what messes you up, is because you want it to be from someone, and when you don't have it, it's like,
yeah, it's that ostracization from society. The alcoholic doesn't care what you think about him. The guy who does heroin doesn't care. He's going to do his heroin in front of you. He can care less because that substance is what makes him feel good. But when you are addicted to attention, and like you said, it comes from other people, when you don't get it, you start to feel like those people don't value you anymore. When you lose that sense of value, then that's why it's big to find purpose and find desire in your life. That's why if there's anything that comes to your head that you like want to try out, like go do it. Expose yourself to new things. You may start to know that you like certain things that you didn't like before, see certain things that you didn't like before. Like going to, and we were talking about this earlier, when I really started like traveling and I was going to South America, I started to see that a lot of the things they did, like we did in our culture. A lot of the issues that they faced, I faced when I was not in North America. When I lived back in the islands, it was like the same type of living, the same type of vibe. But we don't necessarily assume that somebody else is going through the same things we're going through.
Yeah.
And then I haven't been to like Europe. I've been to Asia, been to Japan, and like a whole different like scene out there, but there's like the really nice parts of Japan that are like very futuristic and tech friendly. And then there's parts in Japan where they're living in these like flop apartments. You know what I mean? So it's like those walks of life are everywhere. It's just we don't make that connection because we don't go. We don't see it. We just assume that like we're the only ones going through the things we're going through. And I feel like if we all kind of had a general consensus that like everybody kind of goes through the same emotions, maybe not by the same scenarios.
There wouldn't be so much segregation.
Yeah.
And discrimination. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. But that's like in a perfect world, which we unfortunately cannot have. So.
But it starts with having these conversations.
Yeah, but it's like some people can't have these conversations.
Facts.
So it's like, again, perfect world seems amazing, seems so easy to achieve. It's just that we cannot do so.
Yeah. Such a simple skill would make a difference. But again, we don't talk to people and we don't relate to each other. Out of
We
fear.
don't want to relate to each other.
Out of fear.
It's not hard just listening, paying attention. So.
Ask questions. Genuinely look for an answer. You know what I mean? Like it goes such a long way. And you don't necessarily realize how much that can actually affect the person. Like you walking up to somebody and acknowledging them, saying, "Hey, good morning." Like sometimes that's all they need. You don't know what they went through, what they've been going through in their life. They probably feel like, "Oh, I'm useless," or they're getting abused or something. And you just acknowledging them, saying, "Hey, like, how are you?" And taking a little bit of time out of your day just to acknowledge their existence goes a long way.
Yeah. Yes, it does.
Let's wrap this up before we get depressed. I enjoy it. But yeah, this was actually a good topic. I'm actually happy you brought this to me. If you got any more, bring it because
You
yes,
know, ideas flowing.
are doing their things. We're probably gonna have to split this up to be honest, because it's a little long. But I'd rather have a long conversation than as long as it has meaning.
Yeah, as long as it's important.
Yeah. That being said, guys, you'll probably only find this one on YouTube. Kind of saving all the podcast stuff. The podcast stuff. Me and her, we do offshoots like this all the time, so there's gonna be more stuff like this coming. That being said, follow the Stone Disclosure everywhere that you can follow stuff except for Twitter. Trista, do you have your
Not yet, but very soon.
Trista Talks is coming soon, so when that comes out, follow her on Instagram as well. Follow TSD on TikTok. Again, Voice of Calm might happen. Would be great. With that, guys, Trista, it was nice having this conversation with you. Hope to have another one soon. And we are out. So, guys, always remember, protect your heart.